Welcome in, everyone, to another edition of the GSMC College Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, as always, Tommy Brzee. It is Monday, September 2nd. Happy Labor Day to everyone out there, and we have a great show for you today. It is absolutely loaded, maybe the biggest show we've had in the number of months that we've been doing this, but it's all about Week 1. We're going to jump into everything that you need to know about Week 1. USC, LSU, that's going to be segment 1. We're going to kind of work our way back throughout the weekend. We'll get to Notre Dame, A&M in segment 2, Miami absolutely taking Florida to the woodshed in segment 3. We'll combine Penn State and Georgia into one segment, kind of domination from both those teams, so want to put those two into segment 4, and then we'll just do one quick whip around. We'll go to every single other little headline that we didn't get to, and then we'll probably continue into tomorrow, because there's plenty of stuff to break down as we get ready for Week 2. But before we jump in, I do want to remind you all we get tons of questions and comments throughout the show, and the best way for you all to get your question on the screen, we can have a fun back and forth here, is to use the tip and donation link at gsmcpodcast.net if that's easier for you. But also, there's a super thanks feature on the Sports Network page. There's that little $sign at the bottom of the chat. If you want to click on that, add any question or comment you have, it will pop up on the screen, and we can have a fun back and forth here, a little bit interactive experience, and that's always good for the both of us. So utilize that if you'd like to, and gsmcpodcast.net is still up and working if that's a little bit easier for you. But let's go ahead and jump in, because we have a ton to get to, because it was a crazy week in college football, and we're going to kind of work our way back from the week. We're going to start with last night's game and work our way all the way back to the noon games on Saturday. But USC pulls off a huge win in Vegas over LSU, 27-20, and this one was really fun. There's no doubt about that. This was one that really went down to the wire, and there were so many incredible plays in this game. Frankly, if we're talking about the play on the field, it might have been the cleanest game of all week. Now, there were some coaching troubles at some points for Lincoln Riley and for Brian Kelly, but there were moments in that game where every single player on that field made really good plays. So it was a really fun game. USC comes away with a win after a pretty much last-second touchdown from Woody Marks to finish that one off. But the first thing I want to jump into is just overall takeaways of this game. And the biggest one is these are two totally different teams. And there were still issues. You know, they still gave up a ton of yards. They still had breaks and coverages. They still missed some tackles. No doubt about that. But both these defenses play with a totally different level of intent than they did a year ago. They play way more aggressive. They tackle way better than they did a year ago. The coverage, while not great, the man coverage is a lot better than it was a year ago. So a lot of strides have been taken. D'Anton Lynn coming in from UCLA to USC and Blake Baker coming from Missouri to LSU have made a big difference. There's really no two ways about that. It's very clear that these are very different teams and that they approach games differently. So a lot of aggression, particularly on the USC side, was really impressed with what they did defensively just from an effort standpoint. But moving forward, both these quarterbacks were awesome. As good as the defenses were, as impressed as I was with the defenses, both these quarterbacks were incredible. They went through their reads very quickly, got the ball out where it needed to be, on time, on target, and did everything that you could have wanted them to do to win a football game. Garrett Nussmeier went 29 of 38, over 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick on the last play of the game. So very efficient performance from him. Same thing for Miller Moss that we'll get to here in a second. But overall, I mean, it was two quarterbacks that were just going at it and two defenses that were making the plays that they needed to make at the right time. So really impressive performances all the way around. And then overall, LSU's got to stop scheduling these neutral site games. They are 0-5 in their last 5 seasons. I don't think all of those are neutral site, but plenty of them were. Lost the 2 FSU games, lost this game. It's a rough performance. Pretty much every time they get into those buildings, they always come up just a little bit too short. So they might want to think about playing a couple just layup games over the next couple of years. Now, they do have Clemson next year, so we'll see what happens there. But at the end of the day, it's going to be very interesting to see if this kind of informs some schedule making in the future for the Tigers. But both these teams have a ton ahead. There's no doubt about that. This USC team just put themselves in a position where they are a playoff contender. Going forward, they are a team that absolutely can make some special things happen. And as of right now, I look at their schedule, there's probably 2 games that I wouldn't like them in. And then everything else, I think they have every ability to win that game. So it's going to be really interesting to watch that one unfold. But overall, let's get to the ways that USC won this game. We'll get to LSU a little bit later, but USC was just incredible. And the biggest thing for me was Miller Moss's comfort in this offense was unmatched. We watched two quarterbacks walk on that field for their second start ever. And they had not been in that school for only two starts. I can promise you that. They have been there for a very, very long time and have gotten very, very comfortable in this offense. And it was evident, especially with Miller Moss and an offense that is very quarterback friendly, no doubt about that, but he put the ball exactly where it needed to be on time every single time. It was really remarkable. Every single play that was a timing play where you had to wait for that tight end to clear or you had to wait for him to get past that linebacker. He made every single right play on the right time at the right place, and then made a beautiful touchdown throw to Jacoby Lane late in this one to get USC a little bit of momentum moving in the right direction. So this guy is as comfortable as you could possibly be in this offense. Went 27 for 38, 378 yards, a touchdown, but it's more than that. He get this running game going a little bit because he pushed a lot of those linebackers back with the passing game he was able to show and did so many incredible things throughout this game that I was just astounded with what he was capable of doing. I knew he was going to be a great player this year. I didn't know it was going to look like that, at least to start. So it was really, really remarkable. And obviously, the LSU defense gave him some openings, but he took full advantage. And he's a great example, along with Garrett Nussmeier, of what it looks like when you sit just a little bit. You sit 1 or 2 years, and then you allow yourself to get comfortable in the offense and let it rip in week 1. So he looked the part. He looked incredible, and he might have just started a little bit of a Heisman campaign. Who knows? But DeAnton Lynn, the impact he had is a huge takeaway from this game. There's no other way to put it. It was incredible what this team was capable of doing. They did give up over 400 yards, so if you look at the stat sheet, you might not necessarily see how really incredible this defense was, but I believe there were 6 red zone possessions in this game, 20 points out of them. So it was very, very stifling when it needed to be. It was a lot of bend, don't break, and frankly, that's all that USC needs this upcoming season. They do not need to be special on the defensive side of the ball. They don't need to force a million different turnovers and do incredible things every single play. What they can do is force field goals instead of touchdowns, 3 instead of 6, and make sure that you're always keeping everything in front of you, which they did a great job of against a team that LSU definitely needs to be throwing the ball downfield a little bit more, and something that they're going to have to explore throughout the season. But overall, was really, really impressed with this group. And overall, you go into this game thinking the one massive mismatch is LSU's offensive line against the USC defensive line. That's what we thought. That's not really how it played out. LSU's offensive line did great stuff in pass pro. The run blocking was not nearly where you need it to be going forward, and USC took full advantage. I love Kamari Ramsey on that back end. Eric Gentry was all over the field. Braylon Shelby was causing problems off the edge. This is a team that's further along. There's no two ways about that. And more than anything, it is an energy thing. It is a thing where they just walk on the field and they want to play with more aggression. They want to play with more physicality. And they're bigger than they were a year ago, which obviously helps a lot. So really impressive performance. It shows you the difference a one play caller and one person walking into that room and making that just energy flip can totally change a team. And then finally, responding was a huge, huge part of this game for USC. When you talk about a team that was put under really, really tough circumstances throughout pretty much the entirety of this game, where they're down late in the third quarter, 13 to 17, and then a couple of punts, USC then comes down the field, gets stopped, and I believe they were going in to score about 30-yard line, 25-yard line, somewhere around there. A couple of balls get bat down, and you lose a lot of momentum. Get another 3 and out right away on the defensive side of the ball, come down and score a touchdown to take the lead. It was really, really impressive what they were able to do, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, to get their offense the ball back. And then LSU came right back down, hit a field goal to tie the game, and frankly one that they very much could have scored on, but USC again was bend, don't break. And then Miller Moss just put on an absolute show. The last 2 minutes of that game were a clinic. If you are teaching your 10, 12, 14-year-old son what a 2-minute drill looks like, just turn on that tape. It was absolutely remarkable. He was on target every single time. He got the running game going when they absolutely needed it to. He played the clock perfectly to where they scored the ball with 8 seconds left in this game. It was an absolute perfect clinic from Miller Moss in this offense, and it was really remarkable. And totally different than what they did in the first half where it looked a little bit clunky. So a huge thing for them, and it was one of those things where every time you felt like LSU had that edge, every time you felt like LSU had that moment where maybe it flips towards their direction, it flipped right back to USC. So remarkable performance from this group. DeAnton Lynn is already making his impact known, and you got to assume that defense is only going to get better. And then Miller Moss is just an absolute showman, does everything that you want him to do on a football field, and in that Lincoln Riley offense looks about as comfortable as you can possibly be. But moving on to kind of just where do they go from here? Just a wrap up here real quick, but LSU, I think this is going to be a good team. This is obviously a really hard loss, and it's been a hard loss the last couple of years for this team, but at the end of the day, this defense is better. They, like LSU, had openings, had issues, had broken coverages, but they had a lot of players make some really good play. Ashton Stamps was really good in coverage for most of the day. Savion Jones was a problem in the pass rush. I thought the pass rush in general was really creative and awesome, and the blitzes that they were bringing were really hard for USC to pick up at times. So I thought it was really impressive overall. Blake Baker knows that he doesn't necessarily have the personnel that he wants to have. You're going to have to be a little bit more dynamic. You're going to have to turn up the pressure on these quarterbacks and then see where the chips fall. Garrett Nussmeier is the guy. You have to feel incredibly confident in what he did a year ago. The O-line was not necessarily what I expected. Great in pass pro, not great in run blocking, and they got to be great in both if this offense is going to be what it's capable of being. Kyron Lacey is an outright cheat code, just an absolute beast, and although he did great in the first half, was kind of silenced in the second half, so we'll see if that's something that they can kind of bounce back from. And then Aaron Anderson might just really be a second option for this team. So there's plenty of things to feel good about if you're LSU. Obviously, that 0-1 looks really bad right about now, but you got a little bit of time. You got some time to kind of get your ducks in a row. SEC play comes pretty quickly for LSU, but overall, it's one of those games that you hate it, you walk away, and you really just try to figure out how you can get that little bit better going forward. We know this defense is going to be better. We know that this offense has strides to be taken, but we'll see what happens there. It's one of those things that you don't really know too much about what LSU is going to be going forward, but you do know that the path to the CFP just got a little bit tougher for this team. And then on the USC side, this is a CFP contender. There's no other way to put it. This is a team that has still a ton of work to do, no doubt about that. But at the end of the day, they're putting on an absolute show, and they're doing things that Lincoln Riley teams have not done in the past. And it's really just a aggression thing. It's a passion thing. It's a meanness that they come onto the field with now that they did not for the first 6-7 years of Lincoln Riley's coaching career. So the play calling was much better, and more than that, the attitude of this team was incredibly better. So it was really awesome to watch this team kind of develop throughout this game, and it'll be awesome throughout the next couple of weeks. But they got Utah State, then they get a little bit of a bye before heading to Ann Arbor. It's going to be a lot of what you saw on Saturday. And there was a moment in this game in the fourth quarter where you felt like LSU was just going to be able to lean on USC and get a win and be able to run the ball out. That wasn't the case. USC was able to follow suit and was able to kind of counterpunch that and play really good run defense towards the end of this game. But Michigan's going to do the exact same thing. So we'll find out more about this team in a couple of weeks here. But a huge win for this USC team and a huge win for Lincoln Riley that very much needed this one. So overall, I think USC moves firmly into the college football playoff conversation, and obviously a ton of big-time games coming up. But man, this looks like a team that absolutely can make something happen. Then on the other side, LSU, a lot of good things to take away from this. The defense was so much better than it was a year ago. There were way less broken coverages, even though there were some, no doubt about it. The man coverage was so much better. The pass rush got there so much more often. But you are still 0-1. So you got to figure out how you rebound from this. You got to figure out how you get your feet set before you go into an SEC play that is not going to be easy by any means. So we'll see how LSU responds. We'll continue to break them down throughout the week as they get close to that week 2 game. But overall, USC, huge win. LSU just a little bit left on the bone, but still plenty in front of them for this season. So definitely going to be interesting to see how those two teams develop, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, continue to develop. But let's take our first break here, and when we come back, let's talk about that game that happened on Saturday night. Notre Dame wins a rock fight against A&M, and it was a very fun one, but we'll get to that right after this, so stick with us.